Walter Byron found his stride at the end of the silent era, becoming a leading man to such stars as Vilma Bonnke and Gloria Swanson. But after starring in a few talkies in the early 30s, he moved into character work before retiring altogether. What happened? Join me as I investigate. Walter Byron was born as Walter Butler in 1899 in Leicester, England. There's very little information about Walter, but we do know that by the early 1920s, he was touring Britain in various stage productions. In 1926, he began working in British movies and made his feature film debut in White Heat, starring opposite Juliet Compton. He starred in 6 more British films between 1926 and 1928, all under his birth name, including 1927's One of the Best with silent Talkie star Carlisle Blackwell, and Tommy Atkins in 1928 with Lillian Hall Davis and Henry Victor. He also acted in 3 French films in 1928, including the surviving Yvette, in which he supported French star Catherine Hesselink. In 1928, he got his American big break by starring opposite Vilma Bonnke in The Awakening. According to various sources, he was handpicked by Vilma's usual co-star, Ronald Colman, to be his successor and introduced him to Samuel Goldwyn. Many film historians have concluded that the famous Colman-Bonnke team was split up in order to see if their commercial success would increase if they were separated and teamed with other actors. While the gamble did not pay off financially, it did get Walter's foot in the door in Hollywood. However, according to historian Anthony Slide, Walter had to change his name upon arriving in America due to Walter Butler being the name of the British commander responsible for the Cherry Valley Massacre during the Revolutionary War. So, Walter changed his name to Walter Byron. In 1929, Walter was given a huge opportunity in Hollywood to star opposite Gloria Swanson in Erich von Stroheim's latest epic, Queen Kelly, which was produced by Joseph Kennedy for United Artists. The production was plagued with many problems, including financial setbacks and Swanson's dissatisfaction with the plot of the ending of the film, which she later called, quote-unquote, distasteful. It was scrapped in 1929 and later filmed with a new ending in 1931 and only released in Europe in 1932. It also was still a silent film in the time when it was evident that talkies were here to stay. Regardless, Walter made an impression again and found more opportunities in Hollywood. His stage-trained voice and handsome appearance caused some to hail him as the, quote, new John Gilbert, end quote. In 1930, he starred in 2 films at Fox, both sadly lost and both opposite Lois Moran. The films were Not Damaged and The Dancers. Following these 2 films, Walter's career at this time became interesting and unusual. Between 1931 and 1935, he moved between playing leads and major supporting roles at various major studios and various Poverty Row studios. From what I can tell, he seemed to freelance, which could explain the various sizes of his roles in each respective picture. Regardless, he was one of Hollywood's busiest actors, working in over 30 films in just 4 years. Highlights included starring opposite Jean Harlow in 3 Wise Girls in 1932, starring opposite Myrna Loy in Vanity Fair, also in 1932, Big Time or Bust from 1933, and in the medical drama opposite Fay Wray, 1934's Once to Every Woman. In all of these films, Walter gave memorable performances. One of his biggest skills seemed to be playing the debonair, drunken, wealthy playboy, which he excelled at in multiple films. But he had a greater range and showed in films like Once for Every Woman and The Crusader that he could play other types of roles equally well. In 1936, Walter moved into playing supporting roles, still alternating between major studios and Poverty Row. He also began appearing in uncredited bit parts. In 1939, Walter appeared in his last 2 credited roles as Al Norton in Death Goes North and as villain McCluskey in Crashing Through. He then made 8 additional uncredited appearances over the next 3 years. His final film was 1942's Gentleman Jim. The only post-career information I can find about Walter was that he enlisted in the U.S. Army for World War II. He had since become a citizen. Following his service, I'm assuming he lived his life in quiet retirement. Walter passed away in 1972 at the age of 72. So, we are left with the question, why did Walter Byron's stardom falter in the talkies? I think it did for a few reasons. His major launch into stardom occurred in a silent film, Queen Kelly, that was made in 1929 at a time that marked a turning point in film history and was not released until years later. He managed to stay afloat as a star at major studios in the early 30s, but freelanced and was typecast often as the rich drunks. Once those types of roles either went out of fashion or he aged out of them in the mid-30s, he kept working in character roles in multiple places before drifting into bit parts and then calling it quits eventually. It's unfortunate, as Walter demonstrated in all of his films, that he had a real ability as an actor in both drama and comedy. Take a look at his work in the short Lost in Limehouse and in Three Wise Girls to see his hilarious portrayals, especially in the latter opposite the equally hilarious Jean Harlow. Check out his work in Big Time or Bust and The Crusader to see some more of his serious work. Either way, Walter Byron was a huge talent that should have been a bigger star. At least we have his wonderful work now to continue to view and enjoy. Up next, join me as I cover the silent to talkie career of Mary Bryan. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend.